Now, here she is, Marilyn Denis.
I want to tell you the next 60 minutes could really save your life. We're talking about silent killers today, starting with the #1 silent killer in women. It's the leading killer of women in Canada. Heart attacks. In many cases, the victims die before ever getting to the hospital. That's because you can actually have a heart attack and never realize it. The symptoms related to this silent killer are often vague. Have you ever felt bloated, had pain in the chest, or simply did not feel well? It could be the sign of something a lot more serious. At 39, my first guest suffered a major health scare and almost lost her life. Today, she's here to share her story and possibly save your life. Please welcome Carrie Brown. Carrie, nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
And then we have Dr. Melissa Hirschberg is also with us. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Hirschberg. Okay, you suffered a major heart attack.
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Your age?
I was 39 at the time.
And tell us everything that happened.
Everything. Well, it was about a year ago, actually. It was last Christmas, and I first started feeling the symptoms. Over the holidays, you know how stressful it is. I felt a crushing kind of a pressure on my chest.
Had you felt that before?
I had never felt it that bad before. It was pretty intense, and so that's why I kind of chalked it off to stress, holiday stress. Had the in-laws over for Christmas and everything, the busy kids around. So I just kind of left it and went on with the holidays. Come January, so a few weeks later, I started getting the pressure again on my chest. I started getting shortness of breath, which was very new to me. I'd like to think that I'm a healthy person,
Sure.
a fit person. And
So where did you feel the shortness of breath?
it was when I was going up and down stairs.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. To me, it was just a complete shock that
Right.
these things were happening. However, I still didn't do anything about it. I was in denial about the whole thing. And so a couple days later, I started getting really bad heart palpitations, the sweats, and even a lot more headaches. And then one evening, I was putting the kids to bed. I have 2 boys.
How old are they?
They're 4 and 9. So they're young, and just regular routine. And I was putting them to bed at night, and I got this sharp pain in my arm. But it was my right arm. And it went right down my arm, and then my arm went a little bit limp, and then it started to trickle around my back. And that's where it got really scary. And I ran downstairs to my husband, who was in the kitchen, and I said, I don't know what's going on here. I really don't, but I'm feeling something on my right arm. And he said, let's call the ambulance, let's call the ambulance. But I didn't want to because it was my right arm. You always hear things about your left arm. And of course, I had no other, reason to really think that it was anything like a heart attack or any kind of heart condition at all. So I said, no, let me just go lay down. A wall of exhaustion hit me, absolutely hit me. It was like nothing I've ever felt before.
Right.
And so I just said, let me just go to bed. I'll lay down. I'll sleep it off. I mean, that's me. That's the mom. That's like, you know what? Got to get the kids
we all
to
do
bed.
that, right?
Of course.
Yeah, right.
So I went to bed. I couldn't sleep all night. I got up at 2 a.m. I was Googling symptoms. It could be anything. And I just chalked it up to, again, stress, or maybe it was a pinched nerve or something. So the next morning, what did I do? I went to work. So I didn't do anything about it for the next few days.
For the next few days?
For a week. It was my mom, actually. Thankfully, she was the one who urged me to go to my doctor. So I felt a nagging pain under my arm the whole week, but it had subsided. So I thought nothing of it. So I went to the doctor finally, my GP, and she sent me right for tests, for stress tests and ECG and electrocardio exam, and I failed them. And for me, that was such a shock. So then I went for more tests, blood work, chest x-ray, ultrasound, all of that type of thing.
And they said to you?
And ultimately, I actually found out that I have a pre-existing heart condition as well. So all of this chalked up to that, and I had no idea. It was really, really scary.
So did they say to you, you had a heart attack?
She basically handed me a box of tissues and said, I have some news to tell you.
Oh.
But the thing was, it was a week later, so it was very, very hard to detect and diagnose. But then the heart condition was what came up in the results from the heart monitor that I wore for a couple weeks.
Right.
And it came out, yes.
Well, we're going to ask you a little bit later on how you're living your life.
Yes.
But Melissa, why do we ignore those symptoms?
Yeah.
We do these things. These are all relatable things that you did.
Yeah, so a big reason, you mentioned denial, and I think that a lot of women are in denial. We think of heart disease being a man's disease, when actually, as you mentioned earlier, heart disease is the #1 killer in women. It kills more women than all forms of cancer combined. And also, we're busy and we're so used to doing things, and we just put our health on the side and think, we often think that to have a heart attack, we'd have to have very severe, dramatic symptoms. And like you said at the beginning, yours weren't so dramatic and they were a bit atypical, so you were just, you just didn't believe this could actually be happening to you.
And also, I love this too, because we'll do this. Well, it was the holidays.
Right.
That's exactly
Well, it's after the holidays. Well, I'm working. Well, all that's...
And I'm too young for this. And that was one of the things that crossed my mind as well.
Well, absolutely, because that's not the statistic that we hear.
Right.
So it is different, the symptoms are for men and women. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so men tend to have the typical chest pain that you referred to earlier. It's like an elephant sitting on the left side of their chest, and it can radiate down their arm and into their jaw, and that's hard to ignore because it's dramatic and
Jaw,
severe.
too.
Yeah, up to the jaw or down the left arm.
Okay.
Women tend to present with more atypical and sometimes less dramatic symptoms. You can have all over diffuse chest pressure. You can have right-sided arm or chest pain, or you don't have to have any chest pain. You can just have nausea or extreme fatigue that you mentioned, or shortness of breath, difficulty breathing. So all those can actually be signs of a heart attack.
Question for you with the nausea. Are you talking a lot of vomiting? Is that what you're saying?
Not
Or when
necessarily.
or just not feeling well?
Just not feeling well, just
Okay.
feeling sick to your stomach, not necessarily having vomiting that you think you'd had a stomach infection, but just feeling overall not well.
So let's talk about what happens to your heart. I'm going to let you
Sure.
take it away.
Let me
us.
show you.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what happens to your heart when you're having a heart attack. Okay.
So heart attacks actually start in the coronary arteries that supply blood to the heart. And atherosclerosis is a hardening of the arteries where plaques develop. And if that plaque ruptures, a blood clot can form. And if the blood clot forms, it blocks the coronary arteries so that blood can't get to the heart. And if blood doesn't get to the heart, that means you're not getting oxygen, and the heart muscle ultimately dies. And that's what a heart attack is.
How many arteries do we have?
Several arteries.
Several.
Yeah.
And we would not know that they're blocked. Well, first of all, pre-existing heart condition. From
Right.
when you're a kid, a lot of people don't know that, right? And then
Right.
just some other advice too is just what you eat, no smoking, that whole thing.
Well, exactly. Like the best advice you can give is, reduce your risk factors. So what you want to do, if you're a smoker, quit. Heart attacks are 4 times more common in smokers than non-smokers. Watch your blood pressure, keep it under control. Watch your cholesterol. Obviously, exercise, eat well, and keep your weight under control. And most importantly, if you're having symptoms, don't ignore them. Like you did, call 911, get to the emergency room, chew an aspirin, unless you're allergic. Studies show that if you get to the hospital and get medically checked, 50% will survive survive the heart attack than not.
Couple of things before I'm going to get back to you, because I know you've changed your life a lot. First of all, I don't know how you sleep, because I don't think I would have slept after getting that news. The baby aspirin thing, you have to make sure you talk to your GP about whether or not you should take that every day. Am I right on that?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing is pre-existing heart conditions can, really this can happen because of that, right?
Right. So they will increase your risk of having a heart
So
attack.
how do you
for sure.
know that if no one's ever told you that?
So family history.
Yeah.
So if there were several other people in your family who suffered an early heart attack, that might, let your doctor think maybe to do some tests to see if there is something pre-existing. Otherwise, it's just hard to know. If you think that there's a risk, your doctor might send you for a stress test, might send you for an echocardiogram where they do an ultrasound of the heart, and ultimately that would show.
And the interesting thing is that some of the stressors that you mention is that I'm not a smoker, and I don't, drink much and do drugs, and I'm not obese. So it's interesting because that's why I was in such denial, because I didn't have those
risk
So would anybody in your family have a heart attack?
I have a cousin who did, cousin, but not in an immediate family. So again, one of the things that didn't make me think that it was right away to go to the hospital.
Listen,
it's just unbelievable.
Totally relatable, because I'm sure,
Exactly.
sometimes you go, well, I've got anxiety.
Yeah.
Or my in-laws are coming over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's enough right
I had
there.
a new job, and I have 2 young kids.
Yeah.
Big commute to work, and
Yeah.
just typical things that women go through all the time.
So how has your life changed since this heart attack?
Pretty dramatically. I've taken a step back from work somewhat. I've actually realized that a successful person isn't always a really busy one. And I think that's a really, really good lesson that I've learned. I've also been seeing a naturopathic doctor, which I've never seen before as well, which has made a wonderful impact in my life, as well as my GP and a cardiologist. cardiologist. I'm seeing doctors regularly. But besides that, I'm definitely watching what I eat a lot more so
In
than
what way?
I even did. I'm basically just trying to, I'm taking supplements now as well through my naturopathic doctor, making sure I'm eating all of the right foods, not, cheating with my kids here and there. I do regular yoga. I'm doing meditation now and some trance work as well, which is kind of interesting, which has really learned to calm me down a little bit.
And listen to your body.
And that is the biggest thing, I must say. I've been, speaking to some other women's groups and that is the biggest thing. You have to listen to your body. Even though you might think you're healthy or you are healthy, in fact, you still have to listen to your body. And if it happened to me, it can happen to anyone. I think that's the biggest point of it. Yeah.
So what I've learned from this is something is not normal. Well, that's hard because, we talk about bloating, fatigue, headache. That's today, right? That's going to happen to us today. So what's the final advice you can give to everybody?
Well, the biggest thing with me is that because you get those symptoms all the time, all year
Yes,
long.
yes.
But with me, it was within a kind of a condensed time range, like over the holidays, right to the end of January, and it was kind of consistent. And I think that's the biggest thing. As long as you
go away.
It didn't
that's
go
what
away.
It
That's
didn't
right.
go
So,
away.
yeah.
And they were actually abnormal as well, abnormally so.
Right.
That was the biggest thing.
And Melissa, what do you have to say to anybody out there that's just seen this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want it to be, a fear factor, like scare everybody into thinking, if you have like a headache or this, it might be a heart attack. But like you mentioned, if you're having symptoms that are enough to strike you as being out of the ordinary for you and they're not going away, all it takes is just go to your doctor and get checked. Don't put it on hold because it could be, it could be something more serious.
Yeah.
And this has been a huge wake-up call for me, but at the end of the day, I've turned it into a real positive, and I think I'm leading a healthier, happier life now. So.
Well, thank you for coming in and talking
Yeah,
to us
no
about that.
problem.
It takes a lot of courage to do that.
Thank you.
Up next, 3 silent killers every woman needs to know about. We have to take a break. We'll be right back.